Good morning, guys. Today what we're going to do is a little bit of black walnut dyeing. So what we've done is we collected some black walnuts and we have them here in a ash can, and some of them are green, some are already starting to turn brown. So we filled up our ash can quite full with them, and what we're going to do is, now you can do this over a fire, put 2 logs across in this, but because we are in our area that we did our prior video about dyeing traps with our trap boiler, we're going to stick it on there. We have a small fire going. We thought it'll be a little bit easier. We have a bunch of things we want to dye, so that's how we're going to do it today. So for demonstration purposes, it'll be a little bit easier too for you guys to see what we're doing. So you just want to gather your black walnuts, and then we're going to cover them with water, and I'll show you how much water we put in before we bring it to a boil. And then you just want to bring your water to a boil and keep it at a simmer to a slow boil, not a heavy rolling boil, and you can put your items in and dye them. So stay tuned, we'll get everything set up, show you how we do this. Okay, so as you can see, this wash tub I believe is 19 gallons. So as you can see, it's quite filled up. We do have a lot of black walnuts in here because we want a little bit darker dye. Normally with black walnut dye, you're not going to get a heavy, deep, dark brown. You're going to just get a light grayish, tannish color out of it. So we want to throw a little extra walnuts and see what happens. So we'll get this filled up with some water, and then we'll get our fire started underneath it and show you what it looks like. So that's 5 gallons on a dot. We're probably going to put another 2 or 3 gallons in, just so we have enough depth in the water there, and then we'll start to bring this to a boil. Okay guys, so we have the fire going. You can see we're getting some steam off the water. It's not too hot though. I could put my hand in, not for real long. But if you look here, you'll see that there's some color already coming out from the dye. So we're going to let this keep cooking until it boils, and then we will get some material and get it in there. Okay guys, so our walnut dye came to a boil. I've been letting it boil for a while, and what I'm using today is, this is a heavy white flannel, 100% cotton. And the reason I'm dyeing this is, if you watch my long scout gear video, I had some pieces of cotton in there, and thin cotton, like the Schmog's made out of, it's good for some things. But if you want a pretty bomb-proof piece of gear in your kit, getting a real heavy piece of cotton like this, you can't go wrong with it. There's so many uses for it, it's unbelievable. And if you need to make char cloth with this, because it's heavier, you're going to hold that char a lot longer, that ember on that char cloth, than if you had something real thin. It'll burn through it real quick. So this is 3 yards of material. I'm going to end up cutting this down. I think it's 42 inches wide, so I'm going to make 2 42 by 42 squares to carry my gear. And I'm going to dip just a little piece in. When we put this in, we're going to let this in for a while to really soak that dye in, and then we'll bring it out. We can wash it out and put it back in if we would want to, and do that a few times, or you can just let it in, let it dry. And once you wash it out, of course, you're going to lose some of that color, just as any kind of dyeing. But as you can see, normal white color, just work that in a little bit. Now of course it's not going to stay this dark, but you can tell we're getting some dye out of those husks. So stay tuned, we're going to get this in. My friend Dan, he has a few items he's going to put in, and then we'll show you them once we start pulling them out. Okay guys, so what we did, Dan had material from last year to walnut dyed. He actually walnut dyed this shirt last year, but we wanted to show you on this piece here. As you can see, this is what it ended up, and this is, we just dipped it in the dye. So you see it's going to lose some color because of course it's wet, and anything wet is going to look a little bit darker. Plus some of that's going to wash out. Now, last year did we not, we just kept it at a low simmer. So we never really got the water up and kept it at a constant boil. We brought it to a boil and we kept it at simmer. And then you got the walnuts, they were already...
Yeah, the walnuts had already fallen off the tree and sat for sometimes sitting on the ground, so they were already black. They weren't green like you should be using, which is the green husk, and not the dark brown already. You get more dye out of the green than you do the brown.
And the dye from the walnuts is coming a lot. There's some iodine in, so that's coming out with some of the tannins that are in the husks themselves. But we wanted to show you this quick and just show you what this shirt started out was a white.
Yeah.
So that shirt was white, and we wanted to show you this. As you can see, both came quite close. Now he left this soak last year overnight in just a cold dye, and he just used cold dye lately. Can you want to grab that piece? Yeah. So he used a cold dye that we had left over because we just put our bucket off to the side, and he used that about 2 weeks ago that we had. So that sat all winter, and as you can see, it came out more of a gray color. Now this was plain white when he started, and now we got more of a gray color. So playing around with dyes, sometimes you can get different colors depending on how long they sit and what you're doing with them. So don't just get rid of your dye, always think ahead what you can do with it. So we're going to get back over to trap boiler. We're going to pull out some of the material that we put in. He put a few shirts and some other things in. We're going to hang them and let them start to dry in a little bit here.
And then we're going to re-dye at least half of this to see what the difference is from letting your dye sit for a whole year to fresh dye.
Alright guys, we'll be right back with you. So we pulled our fabric out of our walnut dye. Some of it we left in a little bit longer, and behind us we have a few different things here laid out. So what I'm going to do is I'll get a close-up at the end of the video, but when I do that, just look through, because it really depends on how long it was in the dye, the type of fabric that it is, and also it depends on, of course, how many walnuts compared to how much water. So you saw how many walnuts we had for how much water, and as that cooks down, it's going to get more and more concentrated. Now we're going to save that dye and we're going to reuse it within the next few days. We'll just throw some fresh black walnuts in there and rejuvenate it a little bit, but it'll still be good for a while. And as you saw earlier in the video, some of the stuff Dan had, the dye, it changed a little bit into more of a gray state as it sat throughout the winter. So thanks for joining us for the video.
Thanks.
We'll get back to you soon. Thanks guys.